dark secrets, twisted minds, unsolved mysteries. The world is full of stories that send shivers down your spine, cases that leave behind more questions than answers, and crimes so chilling they defy belief. Here, we dive deep into the shadows, uncovering the shocking details, the hidden motives, and the search for justice. From the infamous to the forgotten, we leave no stone unturned. Welcome to Shadowed Mysteries, where the truth is darker than fiction. Are you ready to enter the mind of a killer? Subscribe now and step into the world of true crime like never before. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Shadowed Mysteries, where we explore some of history's most chilling, unsolved mysteries. Today, we're diving into one of the darkest chapters in American crime history, the Cleveland Torso Murders. Between 1935 and 1938, at least 12 victims were found brutally mutilated in Cleveland, Ohio. The killer was never caught, leaving behind a trail of fear, unanswered questions, and endless speculation. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's uncover the horrifying story of the Cleveland Torso Murderer, a case so gruesome and baffling that it continues to haunt us nearly a century later. To truly understand the Cleveland Torso Murders, we need to step back in time to the 1930s, a decade marked by hardship, desperation, and widespread poverty. The Great Depression had devastated America, leaving millions unemployed and struggling to survive. Cities like Cleveland became hubs of economic struggle, overcrowded with displaced workers, transient populations, and those living on the fringes of society. Kingsbury Run, a desolate area near the city's industrial district, became a symbol of this despair. It was a place where homeless individuals sought shelter among abandoned buildings, train tracks, and piles of trash. For many, Kingsbury Run represented the forgotten side of America, those who fell through the cracks of society. It was a lawless, chaotic environment where survival often meant turning to petty crime or scavenging for scraps. Little did anyone know, it would soon become the hunting ground for one of the most sinister killers in history. The first known victim was discovered in September 1935. A group of children playing near Kingsbury Run stumbled upon the remains of a man. His body was horribly mutilated. He had been decapitated, dismembered, and stripped of all identifying features. There were no fingerprints, no clothing, and no clues to his identity. Investigators were baffled. Over the next few months, more bodies turned up in similar conditions. Each victim was brutally dismembered, their heads and hands removed to prevent identification. What made these murders even more terrifying was the precision involved. The cuts were clean and deliberate, suggesting the killer had knowledge of anatomy or surgical techniques. Some victims showed signs of torture before death, burn marks, ligature wounds, and evidence of prolonged restraint. It was as if the murders weren't just crimes. They were performances meant to shock and terrify. The killer seemed to take pleasure in dehumanizing their victims, reducing them to unrecognizable pieces of flesh. For the people of Cleveland, it felt like the work of a monster hiding in plain sight. As the body count rose, panic spread throughout Cleveland. Local law enforcement launched a massive investigation, but they were facing an uphill battle. The victims were often homeless or marginalized individuals whose disappearances went unnoticed until it was too late. Without witnesses or leads, detectives were left scrambling for answers. Enter Eliot Ness, the legendary crime fighter best known for taking down Al Capone in Chicago. By the mid-1930s, Ness had moved to Cleveland to serve as the city's director of public safety. Determined to solve the case, he poured resources into the investigation. He ordered raids on Kingsbury Run, clearing out makeshift camps and rounding up vagrants in hopes of finding the killer. Ness even installed floodlights and stationed police officers around the area to deter further attacks. Despite his efforts and the involvement of hundreds of officers, the murderer remained elusive. Ness consulted with experts in forensics and psychology, hoping to gain insight into the mind of the killer. Yet, every lead led to a dead end. The lack of evidence, combined with the killer's meticulous methods, made it nearly impossible to identify a suspect. It was as if the mad butcher of Kingsbury Run had vanished into thin air. One of the most chilling aspects of the Cleveland Torso murders was the precision and brutality of the killings. The victims were not just murdered, they were butchered. Their bodies were carefully dismembered, often using sharp instruments like knives or saws. In some cases, internal organs were removed, while others were burned or partially buried to obscure evidence. Some investigators believed the killer had medical training, given the skill required to perform such precise dissections. Others speculated that the killer might have worked in a slaughterhouse or butcher shop, as the cuts resembled those used in meat processing. Regardless of their background, one thing was clear: this was no ordinary murderer. They were methodical, calculated, and seemingly devoid of empathy, a true monster hiding in plain sight. Psychologists analyzing the case suggested that the killer may have derived sexual gratification from the act of mutilation. The removal of heads and hands could have been symbolic, an attempt to erase the victim's identity and assert dominance over them. Alternatively, the dismemberment might have served a practical purpose, making it harder for authorities to identify the bodies and connect them to the killer. Whatever the motive, the level of cruelty displayed was unprecedented. As the murders continued, fear gripped Cleveland. Newspapers dubbed the killer the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, fueling public hysteria. Headlines screamed about the latest discoveries, and rumors swirled about the killer's motives. Was it a crazed loner, a gang initiation ritual, or something even darker? Residents avoided certain areas of the city, especially after dark. Parents warned their children to stay away from strangers, and businesses hired extra security to protect employees. The sense of unease was palpable. It felt as though the killer could strike anywhere, at any time. For many, the fact that the victims were often society's most vulnerable added another layer of horror. If even the forgotten could be targeted, then no one was safe. The media played a significant role in shaping public perception of the case. Journalists sensationalized every detail, painting a picture of a city under siege. While this helped raise awareness, it also contributed to mass hysteria. People began seeing shadows everywhere, imagining the mad butcher lurking in every alleyway. The line between reality and paranoia blurred, creating an atmosphere of constant dread. Over the years, several suspects emerged, each raising new questions about the case. One of the most prominent was Dr. Francis Sweeney, a local physician with a history of mental illness and violent behavior. Sweeney reportedly suffered from severe mood swings and had a fascination with dissection. At one point, he even confessed to knowing details about the murders that only the killer could have known. However, without concrete evidence, authorities were unable to charge him. Another suspect was Robert Robertson, a butcher whose skills matched the precision of the killings. Some believed he might have acted out of jealousy or rage, targeting individuals he perceived as threats. Still, others pointed to the possibility of a serial killer operating across multiple states, citing similarities between the Cleveland murders and other unsolved cases from the era. Despite countless interviews, searches, and theories, the case remained unsolved. a black hole of mystery that swallowed up everyone who tried to solve it. The lack of closure left Clevelanders feeling uneasy, as if the killer might return at any moment. Even today, the case continues to inspire debate and speculation, with new theories emerging regularly. To this day, the Cleveland Torso murders remain one of America's most infamous unsolved cases. The killer's identity and motives are still shrouded in secrecy, leaving behind a legacy of fear and speculation. For many, the case serves as a grim reminder of how easily justice can fail, especially when the victims are society's most marginalized. In the decades since, the murders have inspired books, documentaries, and countless theories. Some believe the killer may have died or been imprisoned for unrelated crimes, while others think they simply moved on to another location. Whatever the truth may be, the Cleveland Torso murders continue to captivate and terrify us, a haunting testament to humanity's capacity for evil. So, what do you think? Who or what was behind the Cleveland Torso murders? Could it have been someone skilled in anatomy, like a doctor or butcher? Or was it someone driven purely by madness? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your theories. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, stay curious, but remember, some mysteries are better left unsolved.